Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Philip. This is the Rangers Respite, and today is Friday Rye Day with another rye whiskey review. Um, I really don't intentionally do this. It is really random. I really do spin on that wheel. I mean, you watch me do it at the end of the previous episode. I don't spin until I get a result I want. I spin it once, and what it lands on is what I do. And sometimes I don't like that answer. But today we're looking at Sazerac Straight Rye Whiskey. And before we get into that, if you like the show, you like what I do, you want to see more, one of the ways that you can support me, aside from liking, commenting, and subscribing, and sharing these videos with your friends, is by purchasing one of these pens from my Etsy shop. There will be a link in the description down below. They are turned from French oak. French oak barrel held cognac for 45 years before being used to finish a peated American single malt whiskey in the Pacific Northwest. If you know, you know. Now, let's get into this. So, this is bottled at 45% alcohol by volume. It is out of Buffalo Trace Distillery in Frankfort, Kentucky. My brain just did that thing where it's like, I think that's where it is. Yep, Buffalo Trace Distillery, Frankfort, Kentucky. Now, one of the funny things about this bottle, at least in the context of my selection of whiskeys, is I'd been kind of looking for it for a while. Because I got Buffalo Trace several years ago, a bottle of Buffalo Trace, and it's like, well, I should pick up a bottle of Sazerac Rye because it's owned by Buffalo Trace. It's a rye whiskey. I like rye whiskey. It just makes sense. And there was a pretty long period of time where Sazerac, this Sazerac Rye, the not even small batch, just the standard Sazerac Rye, um, just wasn't available. It was unobtainium in Virginia. It was, you know, store only, limited to one per customer per day. All around kind of an obnoxious, like, Buffalo Trace produces so much of that stuff that there's no way that it should be allocated. I mean, I feel this, or not even allocated, limited in that manner. I mean, I feel the same way about any time that I see Eagle Rare that way. Because may I remind you, until relatively recently, Eagle Rare would sit on shelves getting dusty. I mean, not super recently, but you know what I mean. On the nose, this is nice and herbal, a little bit spicy almost. Aniseed, fennel, um, some like cut green vegetation, a like nutmeg maybe. Yeah, I think nutmeg. A little bit of cinnamon too. A little bit of a little bit of that like oak tannin bitterness, and a little bit of something that I can't quite identify, that I think I usually like get that note across as like a petroleum byproduct kind of smell, but it's not smelling that way to me today, if that makes sense. On the palate, nice and approachable. That nice rye profile, that nice aniseed, fennel, caraway seed, green vegetal and herbal notes. Just a hint of menthol, not a lot of it, but just a hint. little bit of like sweet root beer candy. Mm. Just a little bit of caramel too. Oh, if you start speaking before it's all the way down, you get a little bit of that in your lungs too. It is it is very mellow and easygoing for 45%. Um, blind, I would probably guess this is around 43%, not 45. Not that that's a huge amount of difference, but it is some. If you watched Blind Simple Showdown on Wednesday night, you'd know that I'm fairly often off and a little bit high, so I try to adjust for that. Now, the finish is where it really lets you down. The finish is really short. It starts off with a black licorice aniseed note that just fades into a caramel note. It's just real sweet. That's where all the sweetness on this is, I think, is in that one caramel note. It isn't super strong on the palate, isn't really present on the nose. And then it hits the finish and it's, it's already gone. It's that black licorice, aniseed, sweet nothing. It's the only place that it really lets me down. Now, what I will say is I got that Van Winkle Family Reserve rye before I got this stuff. There we go. Before I got this stuff. And the Van Winkle Family Reserve rye, it's like, oh, I really want to try this, but like minimum 5 years younger, 5, 6 years younger. I mean, it's got the same DNA. I would say that they are on par. Um, I mean, not really on par, but like this is just the Van Winkle rye at an age where the oak isn't dominating the flavor profile. Um, I am very interested in trying the 100 proof Sazerac that I've seen out there and the full proof 125 proof Sazerac rye, but this is kind of important. I'm not buying any whiskey that isn't Virginia whiskey this year, apart from the Lost Lantern Discovery Club. So I'm not going to, not this year anyway. Not unless we get a representative of Buffalo Trace on the podcast to talk about Sazerac rye, which isn't going to happen. But anyway, I always ask and answer 3 questions about every whiskey that I review. The first one being, do I like it? Yeah, I think this is pretty good. If you are looking for a rye whiskey that is not the MGP 95.5, eucalyptus, menthol, mint, and nothing else. I mean, there's more to it than that, but you know what it is. The 95.5 rye profile. If you're looking for something that isn't that MGPI 95.5, this is a solid pick. It's a little bit lighter, and brighter across the board than like say Old Overholt Bonded Rye or Rittenhouse Rye. Um, I think it's pretty good. Do I think it's a good value for a 30 or less, $30 or less bottle? Absolutely. Um, just full stop. I think this is a good value. This is an excellent, you know, especially considering that rye tends to be a little bit more expensive than bourbon. It's hard to go wrong with this. I would say that if possible, I would recommend buying a little bottle of this and a little bottle of the Old Overholt Bonded Rye and seeing which one you prefer. But that's just me. Last one. Do I recommend it? Yeah, if you're looking for something that isn't the MGPI 95.5, and maybe isn't a really strong funky rye like 100% rye like Catoctin Creek, which isn't super funky, but it's a really good, solid, robust rye. If you're not ready for that yet, the Sazerac rye will do we'll punch the ticket. Now, before I forget, because I've done that a few times recently. Before I forget, I'm just going to spin the wheel. Now, I always click hide choice so I don't spin it again. What'll it be? Ho, 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 ho. Okay. I'm excited for this one. Oh man, I'm going to have to put a little banner at the bottom on Wednesday that says I was involved in picking this barrel. It is so good though. I mean, there's a reason why we picked that one. Just full disclosure. There's a reason why we picked it, but also hard for me to be objective about that specific bottle. So you're going to have to take my review with the smallest of grains of salt. And I've got a maybe I'll break my rule just to order another bottle of it because I have gifted most of the bottles that I bought. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. If you want to support the show, I've got a TeePublic store. There's a link in the description down below. I've got designs like my new channel logo. And I will have some other stuff coming up that's going to release onto there, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. About a month ahead of when I fill the Virginia Whiskey Tournament bracket, with the hopes that sales from those items will help me fund the purchase of the 2026 Virginia Whiskey Tournament trophy. And if you would like a pen, a very nice pen, turned from French oak barrel stay, which held cognac for 45 years before being used to finish a peated American single malt whiskey from the Pacific Northwest. Whew. I have them for sale on Etsy. They're $25 a piece. Proceeds from there help support this show and, to an extent, the Single Malt Frontier because they help me participate in that show. So, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your rye-curious friends. Sláinte.